I'm going to be testing for cervical flexion today. For testing position, I'm going to ask the client to sit upright in a chair with their feet on the ground and back resting against the back support of the chair. And for myself, I'll be to the side of the client. And for goniometer alignment, the fulcrum will be in line with the external auditory meatus, and the stationary arm will be vertically aligned with the head, and the moving arm will be aligned with the base of the nostrils. So for cervical flexion, I'm going to ask the client to bend their chin down to their chest. So would you please do that? And then I'm going to align the fulcrum with the external auditory meatus. Make sure the stationary arm is vertically aligned. And then we will measure down to the base of the nostrils. So we are at 147 degrees. But we started at 90 degrees, so that is 57 degrees of cervical flexion. Alright, I'm going to be testing for knee flexion. So for testing position, I'm going to ask the client to be laying on the bed in a supine position, which means their face is towards the ceiling. And I myself am going to be to the side of the client right here. And for goniometer alignment, the fulcrum will be aligned with the lateral epicondyle of the femur. And the stationary arm will be aligned with the greater trochanter of the femur. And the moving arm will be aligned with the lateral malleolus of the fibula. So for instructions, I'm going to ask the client to flex at the hip as well as the knee. Yes, and then I'm going to align the goniometer with the lateral epicondyle, and stationary arm will be aligned with the greater trochanter. And then the moving arm will be aligned with the lateral malleolus. Alright, so we're at 41 degrees, but we did start at 180. So the final flex position is going to be about 139 degrees of knee flexion. Alright, I'm going to be testing for trunk lateral flexion. So for testing position, I'm going to ask the client to be in an upright position with feet on the ground and pelvis in a neutral position. And I myself am going to be to the back of the client so I can easily measure trunk lateral flexion to either the right or left. And for goniometer alignment, we're going to have the fulcrum in line with the S1 process, and this can be found by palpating the iliac crests, which are in line with the L3 right here, L4, L5, and then S1. So we're going to align the fulcrum there. And the stationary arm will be vertically aligned with the spine, and the moving arm will be aligned with the C7 spinous process. So for instructions, I'm going to ask the client to bend to the side with the arm running against the leg. So would you please do that? And then I'm going to move the goniometer to be in line with the C7 spinous process. Alright, so we have 151 degrees of trunk lateral flexion, but we did start at 180. So the final measurement is going to be 29 degrees of trunk lateral flexion. Alright, lastly, I'm going to be testing for shoulder extension. So for testing position, I'm going to ask the client to lay on the bed in a prone position, which means face is towards the floor. So would you please do that? And then I myself am going to be to the side of the client so I can easily test for shoulder extension. So for goniometer alignment, the fulcrum will be aligned with the humeral head, which is right here next to the acromion process. And then the stationary arm will be parallel to the mid-auxiliary line. And then the moving arm will be in line with the lateral epicondyle of the humerus. So for instructions, I'm just going to ask the client to extend at the shoulder as far as they can without abducting, adducting, or rotating the shoulder. So would you please do that right now? Okay, so I'm going to align the goniometer, the fulcrum at the humeral head, right here. Stationary arm is in line with the mid-auxiliary line. Okay. So the client has 54 degrees of shoulder extension.